All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, December 27th, and this is our weekly developer meeting. We decided to forego our outreach meeting earlier today in favor of reviewing pull requests, which I have been diligently doing. I hope everybody else had a lot of time in the last hour to do that as well. This meeting is to check in on the remaining issues that are likely to get into Backdrop 112, which comes out on January 15th, which means Future Freeze is January 1st, which is 5 days from now. So I hope everybody has everything they want to get in, ready to get in. We've got 5 days to crank them out and get them done. Before we get to those, though, let's talk about a couple of other things. We have, even though there's a handful of us working like crazy on core, there are a bunch of people creating new Contrim projects too, which is great. In the past week, we had both a new release for Vimeo link formatter and for Corporate Kiss, which is actually a new theme. So it makes me really excited to see, and this is an example of a CSS only theme, which is really going to be really good, that we have people who are able to do that and contribute it, but also now that we have an example for other people to follow. So thanks everybody for working on those. Our web properties, we know we have some issues with the module theme layout selection. That's an ongoing issue, number 442 in the backdropcms.org queue. We talked about it last week. There are no updates since last week on that issue. I would like to work on it, but I keep getting distracted by more fun stuff like what's going into 112. So we might change gears and sort of push that to after code freeze. At least I will. Also, the forum site has been having some issues lately with running out of memory. We found some custom code that was causing that problem and reverted it, but now we're having some other problems. So Tim, I don't know if you think the problems we're having now are bad enough that we need to disable things again until we get it figured out, or if you think it's, I haven't tested it, but I saw your comment there where it behaves differently in different circumstances, which is at least a strange experience for people.
Right, and I don't remember. It was a while since I reported that, so I don't remember exactly if it's as bad as it was. So I wouldn't make a recommendation now, but certainly it was pretty bad. People were losing their, typing long posts and then losing them, and I think that's still possible. So we might want to.
Okay.
We might want to revert, but I could check again and.
So it looks like when you create a new comment, everything's fine. When you edit an existing comment and you hit preview, you get the maximum execution time error.
Seems less bad.
And if you're creating a new topic and you hit preview, you get page not found, which is a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why that should happen. I think we should fix that, and fix that, either be like disable preview so nobody gets that and loses their content, or find out why it's page not founding in the first place, which is a little strange, and get that up again. And then the maximum execution time thing, I think we do need to actually look into what's going on in execution to find out why it's eating up all of that time. But yeah, I don't know if you think that's worth disabling the preview of comments for now.
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
go back and look at it again.
Well, let me know if, because you're on the forum, I wouldn't spend any extra time worrying about it. But if you notice it and you're like, oh, yeah, actually, this is really bad, let's turn it off. Just let me know and we can figure out how to do that.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Other than the forum, that's all we have on our list for now, which is great. So I'm going to turn it over to Nate to talk about what's going on in Backdrop Core.
All right. There's a whole lot going on. It's fantastic. So let's quickly go over 111.4, which is the next bug fix release that we'll be creating. That just fixes issues in the current release. We had one large issue that was related to CK Editor. When you link an image, it causes a fatal error, and that's issue 3384. That issue has been merged earlier today. So that is good to get that one knocked off. And then we have a whole bunch of cross ports from Drupal 7.60 and 7.61, which is issue 3375. I've been working through this one. There were a whole lot of pull requests made, mostly Gregory, who made them, and then Herb Duel that went through and reviewed them. Thank you guys both. And I've been working through all of those RTBC issues. I'm about 2/3 of the way through merging each one of those. And then there's 1 or 2 issues that still need to be kind of reviewed to see mostly if we need to do anything at all over in the backdrop side of things. So that's looking really great. There is a large collection of issues that are also tagged for 1.11.4 that are in the GitHub issue tracker, and you guys can go and look at those issues. Really, you know, it's kind of at the point where our focus is probably on 1.12, which you know, that but as things get fixed, you know, we're always happy to be merging things into the 1.11 branch to get things fixed in the current release. Okay, 1.12. 1.12, like Jen said, feature freeze is coming up really soon. It'll be released January 15th, 2019. And we've got a lot of features that we'd like to get incorporated. There were a lot of issues that were marked RTBC for the last week at least, and a lot of those have been merged. Options element in core issue 1005 has been merged. Rendered taxonomy term formatter issue 3283 has been merged. Adding a language to taxonomy terms so that the terms have languages that match the content that they are created on, issue 2934, has also been merged. That's it for the merged ones. Oh, wait. There's also update CK editor to the latest 4.x version is also merged. So those items have been pulled in recently, which is really fantastic. We have lots of issues that are on the cusp as well. Adding a class to a link in the CK editor dialog for adding an anchor tag is issue 3307. That one is RTBC. Actually, I think that's the only RTBC one that we've got here in the agenda. But let's see, other issues. The dashboard for which is 495. I haven't had a chance to look at this one this week, but I think Jen said that there's lots of progress with 3 exclamation points. So do you want to cover that for us, Jen?
Sure. So in the last week, there was a whole bunch of talking back and forth about various things that we could do with a dashboard, and there were a lot of, I think, really big pipe dreams. But what Doc Wilmot had already done is essentially taken a port of the total control module from 777 and made it work for Backdrop, just to be like, hey, here's the dashboard, what do we think? And so what I did is do a super detailed review of that pull request, modifying it. So rather than being specific to 777, it's now more specific to Backdrop. It uses our cleaner terminology, had recommendations for settings, forms, stuff like that. So while Doc Wilmot and I are kind of going back and forth over the pull request, which is great, there's also a conversation going on in the main issue about other features we might like to add, or like how the blocks could be configured, or all this other stuff. So I'm really looking forward. Oh, and then last night while we were sleeping, Doc Wilmot went through and implemented a whole bunch of those suggestions. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether, I haven't tested it again yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing whether the changes were just the like technical, like string changes and stuff I'd recommended on the pull request, or if he's also taking into account some of the things from the main issue. But I'm really excited to see that one moving forward. It looks like the amount of changes required to get it into core is pretty minimal, and we're just trying to decide on what a really solid initial feature set will be. So we want to make sure that we're not putting in a dashboard that's like 777's dashboard that did nothing. We want to make sure it's a useful dashboard, and we want to make sure there's enough stuff on there that makes it worthwhile to put into 112. But we also don't want to do all of the bells and whistles at once. We want to kind of get a good starting point in and then iterate. So as people are using it, we can say, you know what I really need is X, and make sure that goes into 113 before we try and guess what we think people might want on it. So I haven't looked at it since last night. I don't know, Gregory, if you've looked at it yet or not, but I'm like itching to go try it out.
It's been a few hours since I've tested it. I'll give it another spin. My only concern, as you saw, was that concern or opinion that I thought that it would be best if we based it on layout permissions instead of adding a new permission, but yeah, I haven't thought about.
So let's cover that really quick because I think Nate, you might have an opinion on that too. So we could add a visibility condition to the layout that's in core. So like if we just add a layout, there's a way you can add a visibility condition there where you could say this layout is only visible to a role or a permission or something. But the way that Total Control did it, and I don't know, this is my preference, obviously, because I did it this way before, is that it added a new permission that was something like access dashboard. And then I was able to leverage that permission to set up a redirect so that when you logged into the site, if you had the permission to access the dashboard, it would redirect you there. So we also have this issue with like, who do we redirect there? Like you can't redirect everyone because not everybody has access to see the dashboard. Or shouldn't have access to see the dashboard, but maybe we could do that in other ways where like maybe they get to the dashboard, but it's empty because they don't have access to see the blocks. I don't know. So the way the current pull request is there's only one setting for the entire dashboard, which is,
yeah, the wording for it says redirect all administrators to the dashboard.
Right, redirect or not. And then the description text says anyone with this permission, and the link is to the permissions page. And that's the only setting is for redirect or not redirect. And so it's also a little arbitrary, like where do you then put that setting, right? Because we don't have a module, this is just a layout. So I recommended System Core. But yeah, it is a little weird to have like add a new permission and then have one setting that like leverages that permission when we do have the ability to have an access check in the dashboard.
I thought that there was actually a module. I thought that it was actually a module because I saw that.
I don't think that's the end plan. I think it's all like all the blocks go into the modules that provide them. So like node module provide the node listing and all that stuff.
So this will be like a system module setting thing, a JSON file for.
Yeah, it'll probably go into System Core. It's just one setting.
Maybe the way that the reason why I expressed that opinion was because maybe I didn't get a good idea of how the technical solution would work out. And I didn't know if this is going to be only a layout-based solution or if it's going to be actually a module. If it is a module, maybe, because I actually looked for a hook permissions thing in the code and I didn't find any.
In the pull request?
Yeah, in the pull request. So I was looking for a hook permission and I didn't see any. Although
I don't think it's there because he also, the name of the permission was something like access total control. Like it was very specific to the previous module. So it makes sense that that might not be there yet.
Yeah. And then my concern was that we call that the dashboard and we have a specific URL for it. Is that the intention to have admin/dashboard for every dashboard that people want to create? Because then it means that people can only need to have the access admin pages permission to be able to access the dashboards.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I'm just asking.
I mean, I think that we should only assume that people will have one dashboard. I think if it's going to be a layout and we provide it for them, we could even get the path based on that layout. So if they wanted to edit the layout and edit the path, we could, whatever setting that says redirect them to the dashboard, it would say, what's the dashboard's path? Yes, no, redirect to that. Like we don't necessarily need to have anything where it's hard-coded. But I would like to make it so that if people want to add other dashboards, like whether it's, you know, admin/dashboard/something else, or if they just move it to /dashboard, that would still work for people.
Yeah. Because the way that it is done now in the pull request, the way that I saw it, it was just hard coding the admin/dashboard thing.
Yeah, I think the most recent change removed that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I honestly think for the first round, hard coding it to admin/dashboard is fine. Like if we think about the pattern that we have with views, right? Like the content listing, you know, for administering content or comments or taxonomy terms, all those things are views, but the view is just configured to be at that particular path. And then we hard code that path all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think that's fine for the initial round, at least. Like if we want to make it so that you can change the path, then that's a feature, you know. But
Okay.
the working assumption that we have elsewhere in core is that hard coding paths to bundled configuration files is fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's gonna make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how people are going to use it. Like most people might only require a single dashboard for a single role in the site, but other people, I think, Tim, was it you that you mentioned in the? No, it wasn't. So someone else mentioned that they have multiple dashboards for multiple people, but since this is a layout, people can add blocks with certain visibility, so they redirect to the same layout. So the only use case that I can think of for people to have different layouts completely for the dashboards is if they want to have different regions.
Sure. I think my comments were misunderstood. I had multiple different pages sort of for different content types, but I don't view them as different dashboards. It's like really what I'd like is on the dashboard is a quick link to these various content management pages. So it would be the same role using it, and it could all, you know, a good dashboard would remove my need for having those 5 different sort of links under the admin menu. Because I
have also built sites with multiple dashboards for different roles. Like depending on what people are doing on the site, the things they might need to have access to could be really different. And I've done that in a couple of ways. I've done that one way where it's like the dashboard itself changes depending on what you're looking at, which you would do with like different blocks with visibility conditions. But I've also done it where all of those blocks live like on the user page, right? Where you turn the user page into a dashboard and then you have different user page over it. And we could already do that with the dashboard blocks that we're putting in Cori and the other one. So I think it'll kind of, all of the solutions that I've done in the past were sort of based on the tools that I had to do it with. And I think that what we might see in Backdrop, like all these use cases were like, well, they're all sort of possible. We just don't know what people are going to want to do most, like whether they're going to want to have one dashboard with the different blocks or whether they're going to want multiple dashboards or what have you. And I think that, you know, initially we don't know. And so I think it's just safe to be like, we know people are going to want a dashboard, let's start there. And then if it's okay to hard code all that stuff, that makes that job a little easier because we can set it to, you know, an admin page, so it'll use admin layout and all that stuff, admin theme. And then in the future, we can say, okay, well, now if you're going to want a different dashboard or work it differently, we can have a feature request that's like, hey, I want to change the path or what have you, and we can figure out how to make that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of getting something better than what we currently have real quick. Like I mentioned that in the issue as well. My only concern is that we don't, by the way that we technically implement this, we don't block any of the possible features that so by mentioning certain things, I don't want to derail the discussion or risk not getting in the feature, which is awesome for 1.12. I'm just, you know, saying that the way that we implement it does not block us from, for example, one of my concerns was existing sites. We are planning to redirect people to that dashboard, but existing sites that already didn't like the fact that they, that people, when they logged in, they got
user page.
Edit the user page. They might have already done something about it. So if we redirect them out of that, it might not be desirable for them yet. So just something to think about. And that's why when I thought about it and I did some research to see how things are solved, these problems are solved in Drupalland, I tried to see what other contrib modules are doing. And some of them were simply offering a solution to redirect specific roles, specific places. So I was thinking that for fresh installations, we can just decide and say, yep, we redirect everyone to the dashboard. But for existing sites, we should provide a way to retain the current functionality and allow for those that want to switch, because otherwise we'll break functionality. Oh, we risk breaking functionality for people.
Yeah. I'm not sure how redirects work that way. I don't even know if there are like 3 redirects for logging in. Does one of them, is it like the last one that was defined that wins? It's muted. I'm not sure you can hear me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was directed at me.
Yeah, so I ran into this with Total Control too, I think, where if you have like a custom module that's handling redirection and then you have a contrib module that's handling redirection, I don't remember which one wins. Like,
if you're setting the form state redirect, then the last one that sets it wins.
Wins.
So
Yeah.
So my idea was this, that independent. So we are trying to tackle this problem as well of offering people something more useful than the user page, but it doesn't have to be in that specific issue. So we can add the dashboard, but not the redirect right now. I'm just saying, as an idea, and then have a thought about, because we can add the redirection later on.
I don't see a reason to add it later.
Is the redirect part of dashboard module, or is it something else?
No, it's just a setting. It's just a core setting.
A setting in system module then?
Yeah.
And then when dashboard module is turned on, it sets that setting.
There's no dashboard module.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought there was dashboard module.
No.
Just a layout.
Oh.
Just a layout, just like the homepage. There's no homepage module.
So what owns it?
System module.
System module owns dashboard. Oh, huh. I didn't realize that. I thought that this was
We could make layout module own it.
So yeah, so my idea was, how about we add a field, the role configuration form has only a couple of fields.
But we don't have a use case for that. Like, this is a theoretical use case that it's like going to be like 2% or something of people that want to do this thing.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Did we not have a sorry, I'm rewinding a little bit. Did we not have a dashboard module at some point? Was that not one of?
We removed Drupal 7's dashboard module.
Right. I meant as part of this issue. It's always been part of system module. It hasn't been. There never was a dashboard module in this issue. I might have been getting things confused. I think I might have been working on an assumption there.
Yeah, I don't know.
We would make a dashboard module that owned the layout, and then it wouldn't be turned on existing sites, but you could just turn on the module. It would turn on the dashboard layout. It owns the permission, and it does all the redirecting stuff. So if somebody wanted some other kind of dashboard, they just wouldn't use the one in core, you know.
But that you could just disable the layout.
Yeah. That was
yeah.
The same way, like you can't turn off the homepage module and turn on a different homepage, right? You just disable the layout or override it.
Right. Yeah. I guess. Can you actually disable the layout, or could you even like delete it?
Yeah.
I think you can delete it.
In theory, you could delete it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only layouts that we don't delete are the default ones, the default and the default admin one.
Yeah. The home layout is interesting because that's not actually owned by system module. That's created in the standard profile.
Right. I think that's what we were doing here. I don't remember the pull request specifically, but that might have been the plan for this too. But the setting would belong to system module, like redirect or not, yes, no.
Yeah, but that's tied to a permission.
And the permission is owned by system module.
Yeah, and the permission. So there's permission called dashboard that has dashboard in it. That's owned by system module. But it's possible for the user to delete the dashboard layout, and so that permission would no longer. I mean, they could reuse it for something else, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of my objections, it's not a handle objection, it's just a matter of discussion, was that we shouldn't be adding more permissions to the already bloated permissions page, like if we can avoid it. But Jen had a fair point there that we can use the visibility conditions of the layouts because they allow visibility per role. But then that's not as easy as, like, most people know how to use permissions when they come from Drupal 7.
Right. Oh no, I definitely think we should have a permission for access to dashboard.
Okay.
Because that's where I would expect to find it, and then configure the layout to use that permission.
Okay.
I'm getting a little hung up on this being part of system module, but I'll think about that some more and determine if that's a reasonable complaint.
Okay. There are other places where we could put that. Like if system module isn't the right place, like we could make it part of a layout module. If it's,
or the standard profile maybe.
Or I don't know if the permission.
But the permission has to be owned by something.
Yeah. The permission and the setting, I think, are the trick there.
The problem with profile is if someone deletes the layout and they decide to put it back, we cannot at the moment rerun profiles. So it's not as if it's a module or a.
Yeah, in order for something to have a revert capability, like to specify it as default and then be revertible, it has to be owned by a module. So like there's no revert option for the homepage layout because that's not owned by a module. It's just created for you out of the box. But in order to have a revert, like we do for views, which you can also revert on layouts, it has to be able to pull the default config from somewhere, which...
Well, so unrelated to this, would it be better to have the homepage module be revertible?
I actually brought that up when we were building the thing.
Yeah, so maybe this is a bigger question, like maybe default layouts that we want to be part of core shouldn't be part of the
standard profile
or whatever. Maybe they should belong to layout module.
Yeah, we actually have an issue about being able to rerun profiles post-installation.
I'm not sure that's as far as I wanted to go with this.
I'm just saying, encyclopedically.
Yeah, yeah, encyclopedically.
Yeah, you've got like all the issues like in your head somehow. It's amazing.
Because I filed most of them, that's why.
But anyway, that might feed into our decision here about where to put the dashboard. Like if we already know we have this perhaps issue with the home page where maybe we want it to be part of module instead of part of the profile, then that might change our thinking about where we want to put the dashboard config file, whether it should be part of a module instead of part of the profile.
Yeah.
But my thought was that it's just a layout. Let's just throw it in the standard profile, just like the home page. I didn't realize there were issues with the home page that we need to be concerned about. And then all of the blocks should just go into whatever modules they come from. So if you have a module that lists like recent content, it should go in the node module. And you have one that lists recent users, it should go in the user module. Just like the admin or the dashboard blocks for Drupal 7 came from those respective modules. And I don't think there were any dashboard blocks that span multiple modules, except for maybe one, I don't know, in the examples anyway. So it'll be interesting to see what, I haven't looked at the latest pull request, but it'll be interesting to see what Takumon's done with where to put all of the stuff so far.
Yeah, out of curiosity, do we have any, I'm not sure if it's even been brought up, like creating a dashboard module. Like, are there any complaints against creating a dashboard module and then putting everything in there, including like the redirect to the dashboard on login functionality?
Well, only complaint is that you'd have to turn it on.
Right.
So like people who are already running Backdrop wouldn't necessarily get the advantages of using it.
Yeah.
But that could also be a bonus, right? Like as Gregory pointed out, if someone already set that up and they didn't want it to be, so that's either way. And then the other thing is like we don't, like what is the point of having a separate module other than this one checkbox and the permission?
Well, the redirect sounds like we've got some problems with how the redirect works, you know, because it's based on the permission, you know, like only redirect if they have this permission. That's weird. The layout needs to live somewhere and we need to add a permission. I don't know, all those things could all live together in the module. And if we wanted to give that to new sites as they upgraded, we could just add an update hook that turns on the dashboard module during the upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I think my main organization is like, why would you create a module for just those two things? Like a permission and a checkbox. It just seems
it might be more in the future because as far as I can recall, the dashboard module in Drupal 7 allowed you to rearrange blocks per user, customize it. So
I don't know, never used it.
Yeah, in the future it might evolve to something different, but I don't have a specific objection against being it a module.
What about the default? Aren't we going to have some default blocks turned on? Where are they being created?
That's just part of, so the blocks are in whatever modules are providing them, and the turned on is just a setting in the layout.
Yeah. So I know we're not a typical use case, but I posted what we have for dashboards in Gitter. And basically what Drupal wanted to do with telemetry, what Civi CRM has done to like build a community around the login process to the CRM or CMS is like definitely not something we want to be constantly fighting against, because we hide the fact of like what platforms our users are using from them. But I don't think anything you guys are discussing rules out doing what we've already done and the type of things that people with enough resources would actually want to customize and build out. So starting with the default that is like the Civi CRM dashboard, I think, that has the backdrop information, I think is great. But you just need to be able to customize that for the specific platform and use case. So ours aren't super awesome, but we have 1,200 of those out there. So it's a real use case if you want to take a look at how we did that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Great.
And I like the fact that having it as a layout, no matter where it lives, that people can just clone it and create multiple dashboards for other roles or what have you, use cases. I like the flexibility of that.
There is going to be the one problem with just cloning the layout won't make it an administration page. It'll make it a front end page. So that could be a little weird.
If you keep the path the same, then they get sort of like, you can also reorder them, and then visibility conditions and permissions can come into play.
Yeah.
I think the highest, it is the one that's at the highest wins.
Well,
So
the
that's
URL is what determines the admin status. So as long as it's admin dashboard something, it'll be an admin page, and it doesn't. You're right. All of the things at the same path will still work. But if you wanted to create a new one at like /dashboard, all of a sudden that would be front end.
Yeah, that's a different use case. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be fine though, because that's not under /admin anyway. I don't know. Yeah, I'm in the theoretical use cases again.
Yeah, so instead of using paths, people can clone the same layout, leave the same path as admin dashboard, and then play with permissions and so on. And then the permissions would take over and redirect the people to the proper whatever they're meant to see, which is, I think, great. It's like, yeah.
So it sounds like we still have this issue with the only thing we need to have in a module is the hook menu entry to make it admin paths or hook admin paths entry or whatever. A settings form with a single checkbox on it and a permission.
Yeah, and figuring out if it's worth having it as a separate module so that it can be disabled, enabled, and reverted.
Right. So that would be like, what's the code in this module look like? There's three hooks, and then of course the function that redirects based on the value of the checkbox.
It will be a very small module. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't object to.
Okay. If nobody else objects to it, then I will stop objecting to it. It just seems kind of wasteful to like have to make people turn that on. We could just.
We can have it for new installations. We can have it turned on by default. And remember that we have info messages now, and I have plans for them. As I said, we can throw info messages saying we actually have a ticket for that. This is what WordPress does, and it does it well. It says, "Look, welcome to the new version of WordPress. You have updated. These are the new features. You can enable those." So we can take advantage of that.
All right. I want to set plans.
Yeah, that actually. That makes a lot of sense. That's so much better than a green message that says like, everything went okay. This is just informational. That'll be the first time we've actually used them. If we actually do that, that would be great.
Yeah, I actually was taking screenshots. I set up a test installation of 4.x and upgraded WordPress and updated it to 5.x, and it's really awesome. It gives them the option to keep using the old non-Gutenberg version with a message, and then it shows them how the new version of things work. And they also have tabs of credits, which is really great. It lists all contributors that added code to that version. It's pretty good ideas, and we already have a ticket for that. I'll add those screenshots there later.
Do we have an issue for... So when you upgrade from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, we post a number of messages, I think, to like at the top of the after update.php is run, but I think they're all still green status messages.
Oh, I haven't done that before. It's a good question. I haven't
Some of
done
them
that
are
before.
yellow.
Some of them are yellow. Well,
Yeah,
well,
they're
if
like-
it's just informational, it should be the new
Info.
blue one, I think. And yellow doesn't necessarily.
The yellow
it'd
ones
be
are
yellow.
like, hey, check your date formats. Like they really are
Yep.
warning-y.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that could be. We're not actually using info messages anywhere, as far as I know. We just have them. So
Gregory has plans.
But yeah,
yes,
they have
plans.
potential.
Okay. So yeah, lots of stuff's going on in Dashboard.
Right.
Spend most
More
of the
requests
dev
for
meeting
all
for
the
that.
code is. I hope Doug won't be too mad at me if it's like, don't put it in its own module. Never mind, put it in its own module.
Oh,
How
did
about
you say? Did you initially say don't put it in its own
Yeah.
module?
I think so,
Oops.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, I will file a pull request against his pull request that puts it all back and says, never mind, I'm wrong, I'm sorry, and see if that helps at all.
Oh, jeez. The issue
I'm surprised.
whiplash.
I thought everyone was going to be like, you don't need a whole module for a layout and a checkbox, but it's okay. I was wrong. All right. Anyway, next up, tags for modules.
Oh,
Do you want to
config
do that
translation.
update?
Oh, sorry. We skipped over config translation.
Oh,
Should
I
we
thought you talked about that already.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Dashboard's behind us. Okay. Config translation is issue 704. Herbduel has been making some substantial enhancements to that pull request to get it to a more functionally complete state. He already added new APIs to make it so that translatables could be pulled out of config files and also stored in config files, identifying which keys are translatable. But he recently updated the pull request so that now when new config files are imported, they are now automatically scanned for translatables and then are run through the locale function, which then inserts them into the list of strings that need to be translated on the site. So that's very exciting. I haven't had a chance to do the code review yet. We're definitely at the point that we need to start looking at, is this practical to move in, even in like a partial state, and then continue to iterate on it later, or if it's something that we need to do all at once later down the line.
I always wanted to help with that issue, but I'm always confused as its use case. So is the use case, for example, to have the site name translated, things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The site name is a great example. But
Emails?
an even better example would be like the labels that are used on fields, for example, because they're stored in config, but they need to be per language.
The same goes for emails, like the emails
Yep.
that send out? Okay.
The registration emails and welcome emails. Yeah, those as well.
It might be worth adding those as examples in the issue summary for that, for people that want to test things out. Yeah. I'll do that.
Yeah, right now it's kind of all over the place as to what is getting implemented. So, but I think it's gotten to the point that there might, because he's working specifically on the registration emails for starters. So I think that's the area in which testing is recommended. Yeah, so that one needs some more review. Definitely, like anybody that has time to take a look at that and see, what it's doing. That would be handy. I'm not sure that the summary is very accurate right now, like you say, Gregory. That could be helpful to get more eyeballs on that, because right now I think you kind of have to read the code to figure out what the heck it's actually even doing.
Yeah, I imagine that people like Olaf would like to test that because he's into multilingual as well. But if we don't give them something to test, like example use cases, they won't be able to help.
Yep.
I'll do that. I'll update the summary.
Super. Okay. Next up, tags for modules, which is issue number 37. It's always funny when I bring that one up. So old. Okay, this adds tags to modules in their .info files so that modules can be categorized via tagging, and then those tags can be used on the modules page inside of Backdrop itself. there's no update on that core patch, but Doc Wilmot has been working on the corresponding patch for backdropcms.org in issue 487 of the backdropcms.org issue queue. And so in that issue, he has made updates to make it so that when a new release of a module or any project is made, tags, screenshots, and in the case of themes, colors are now added into corresponding fields on backdropcms.org. So that is work that is still in progress. I think several weeks ago, Jen, you added the necessary fields to backdropcms.org itself, like so the data model is there. And then with Doc Wilmot's pull request, it now starts populating that information when new releases of modules are made. And so we can continue kind of experimenting with that because until we document it and start updating modules and themes and layouts, actually updating the code to populate that information, it's not actually going to do anything.
Were we going to have the packager remove the screenshots from the module files?
Oh, it doesn't do that. That's an interesting idea to
reduce the size.
Reduce the size of the archives. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, Doc Wilmot had posted, I had a question in there about, so themes have a screenshot that is used in the user interface, right?
Yeah.
But it's just hard-coded as being screenshot.png.
Well, there's actually a line in the info file that you can use to define a different file name if you're not using screenshot.png. But most people just use screenshot.png.
Okay, so that's just the default.
And we also had a ticket, an issue for supporting multiple screenshots as well in the future.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is that the screenshots, plural, would go into a directory named screenshots, and then that entire directory could get thrown out by the packager.
Interesting. But what about the multiple screenshots idea?
One, because the user interface needs it, but it isn't going to need the whole slideshow.
Gregory, you said that there was an issue for having themes having multiple screenshots. Is that in the project browser or in the user interface of Backdrop?
It might have been part of a meta issue where we are supposed to allow different kinds of metadata to be supported in .info files, and there's a respective issue for that in the .org. But I can't, like off the top of my head, I can't remember what was discussed. It's one of the old issues.
So I did add that multi-value field architecturally to modules, themes, and layouts on backdropcms.org. We just need to figure out how to manage the information coming in.
So in theory, we could somehow, if we manage to get node permissions per person in b.org, allow contrib maintainers to manage their own project page and add screenshots there, right? In theory, instead of having them on GitHub.
Right.
Yeah,
we could.
Although I would expect that most maintainers are going to be more likely to manage it on GitHub and less likely to log backdropcms.org. So it'd be good if we could get it to work both ways.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we should add a comment to issue 487 in the backdropcms.org queue about removing the screenshots from the directory in the packager, because he's working on the packager basically right now. So this is an additional part of that. I think it might be a different place in the code, so maybe that would actually be a follow-up, because we could always make the archive smaller, later.
That ticket is hard to help with though, because how can we test it?
Right. Yeah.
There's only a few people that will be working on it. I'm just mentioning that. Anyways, before we move on from 37, before 37 was split to different issues, we also had a series of radio boxes that would filter by core, contrib, and custom, and that was split out. Was that ruled out as a feature, or are we waiting for 37 to get in and then discuss that? Jen, do you remember?
I don't recall either. I think that we were hoping to get 37 just knocked out before we did anything else.
Okay.
I don't think there's been any other discussion on that.
Yeah, the initial implementation had everything in it. It had a drop down with all the tags or whatever they were. It had the search filter, and it had the 3 radio boxes that allowed to filter by core and what have you, because we would remove the groupings. So we needed a way to allow people to filter just by core or by contrib or the custom modules. And that was split off to a different issue. I don't have a number.
Yeah, there are 3 of them, I think. One of them was like the core contrib filter. One of them was the removing the groupings, and one of them was the package filter.
Yep.
The
tags. Yeah.
And those are all separate from 37, which was just add tag info to the module page.
Okay.
There's a meta somewhere, I think.
Yeah. Or maybe 37 was the meta. Or
yeah, I think I don't remember.
Yeah, we had very few issues back then to make metas.
Yeah, on issue number 37, is that something that I think, Jen, you were taking the lead on? Is that something that we'll see any updates on for 1.12?
So. It seems like it's close. Gregory, I think you might have been the last one to test it, but I think there was something wrong with the search, not searching the tags field correctly or throwing some kind of a console warning.
It's been a few months since I tested it, but I can give it another go and let you know.
Yeah, I want to look at it too. I have it open in my browser for my things to get to today list, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah, right now it's still issue number 37 itself still is marked as needs work. Yep. Okay, let's move on. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Fieldable file types. This allows files to have different types or bundles and also have fields attached to them. That's issue 2632. Still kind of in a holding pattern here. There's no update, but it's still like a comprehensive set of pull requests. Yeah, we're just kind of stuck on this one. It needs feedback as to whether or not there's anything in it that we could remove that would make it easier to review. I think there's just a lot of hesitation around its size. Not the fault of the people that have put it together, which is a really great set of work to port file entity module over to Backdrop as being part of file module directly. So I think some just more users trying out the entire set of functionality and seeing how, if there's new inconsistencies or confusions caused by merging a contrib module into core, then we need more feedback basically on how the whole system works together. From the code standpoint, it looks great.
With similar issues where it was modules that were being merged that were, one of those big, huge ones, what we used to do was we used to merge what we thought was useful, and then someone would just try to do something by following a tutorial, for example, that was made for the D7 version of the respective module, and then they would find that there was a feature missing, in which case they would just file a ticket on GitHub, and then we'll re-add what we left out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should.
I tried several times to separate stuff from file entity into smaller pieces, and I'm not sure that worked very well. So it might be best to try and leave as much as we can together, because it is really hard when you start taking things apart. Like the whole thing, it's a lot of code, kind of messy, but it works, and we know it works. And I think the more we mess with it, the less likely it will work, or at least work in the same way. So I would love, that's a great idea, Gregory, to find a tutorial and just go through it and see if we can do the stuff we think we can do. And if we can't, is it like a missing feature that we don't need, or is it something that's like broken?
Yeah, and remember also that although I don't think there's been any major version of it, that we merged those contrib modules from D7 at some point, but then we do not follow the development. So there might be features that got added and we missed them, it's natural. We just re-add them. But yeah, I'll see if I can find a tutorial for that and try to do things. I think the whole
a heck of a lot of updates to file entity this year?
I think that the whole issue was triggered, or something, that a comment there was triggered because someone actually tried to do something with fields and views and they couldn't do it. So it was something that, anyways, I can't remember clearly now.
Okay.
But my point is that if we leave something out, if we miss something, or if we break something by putting it, because it's such a big module, we won't be able to know of the start. But we can fix things on the bag release, so
Yeah.
shouldn't worry that much. I'm also a fan of what Jen said. Just merge as is, adapt it to work with Backdrop, and then we can iterate on cleaning it up.
Yeah, that is that would be feasible. I mean, just
Okay.
going that approach.
So your confidence level on doing that, Nate, you're going to need a lot more testing before you can merge this is, right? So, Gregor, I don't know if you know of any of those tutorials. I'll do some Googling too, but I think it would be good just to get lots of people banging on that.
I don't know
Right.
off the top of my head, but I can find some. Is the file entity, the porting and merging into Backdrop, going into different modules, or we have a specific module that we are? Is it getting only on system or file?
It's all going into file. Everything from file entity module is just getting merged directly into file.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the big-
Yeah.
The big need there is just testing it out.
Yeah, actually, testing it out, and if making sure that everything either works comprehensively, or if it, everybody is a little bit overwhelmed with the scope of it, and so if there's functionality that could be separated out, then that might be good to make a suggestion there as well.
Got it.
I know in particular there's some weirdness things like we add fields to file or to image files that make it so that you have like alt text and title text are added as fields to all images, but then the alt text and title text fields are not actually used anywhere. It's a little bit strange because they're not built into the way that files themselves are. Like when you upload a file, you specify alt and title, and that's the alt and title that you used on that node. And then if you reuse that file someplace else, you also specify alt and title, but it can be different on that node than it was on the previous one. So things like that, we might have things that aren't fully integrated or fully baked. We need to figure out what to do with that
I
stuff.
think we should just create, right now, at this point in time, what we should just do is create a meta that's like file entity follow-ups. And it would be like pre-populate alt and title text with file information when you reuse a file, like stuff like that. It would be pretty
make a lot of
easy.
sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, from what you said, Nate, it doesn't sound critical. Like we can ship 1.12, and if we're missing that feature, or if it's broken functionality, consider something that it's weirdness, we can fix. We always fix weirdness along the way. So
Good at fixing weirdness.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's what
bring
we
it
need.
on.
Yeah, feedback on that one. Okay.
Yeah, now that you mentioned testing, I know that it's mentioned below, but it might be, since you merged CK editor in 1.x, it might be a good idea to ask some people that have pull requests against CK editor related things that are still open to just close the pull request and reopen it so that the instance can be fired with, so that people can test and like if there's any breakages, they can be detected before we actually create the release.
Yeah, they get a fresh sandbox that has
Yeah.
the updated version. Yep. It's also a good suggestion. Okay, let's keep going here. We're kind of rolling way over time here. So, okay, core updates is issue 2018. The main issue on which we're focused for 1.12 is a sub-issue of 2018, 3271. And that adds the user interface for enabling core updates, not automatic updates, but just making it so that you can update core in the same way that you can update contrib modules through the user interface. Currently needs review. It looks like it has been getting some eyeballs on there. There's potentially some unrelated problems, I guess, that maybe updating just anything at all sometimes doesn't work I think, Tim, you were the one that was providing that feedback. Thank you for trying that out, even though it's not working. But it does seem like for other people, if updating other things is working, then updating core is working as well. So I think it's continuing, like more eyeballs. Jen, do you have anything that you know is necessary there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would say
trying
like, we should not merge this pull request until we can fix that problem, because we're going to get a whole bunch of people who are likely to blow their site away if we give them a bomb and know that that could happen.
What's the problem that we encounter right now? I thought it just wouldn't work. It would actually destroy somebody's site if it failed.
I think so. Tim, do you remember, did it delete like half the files? There's something very strange that happened.
Well, that's not what was happening for me.
Oh.
No,
do you
for me, it just didn't work. So
what do you mean by didn't work? Like nothing happened?
I got an error message.
Okay.
And,
so there were two people who are on shared hosting who I don't know if you might know that, Tim, issue more than me, but one of them looked like they had sort of a scary output or outcome, but I don't know that was necessarily the same problem that you were running into. If nothing happens at all, I feel like that's much better, and we maybe shouldn't hold this up.
Yeah, and even the way it's implemented, it's not really possible for it to like try to delete half of it, because all it does is it just renames it, just moves it to a different location, puts the new one in its place. Okay. And if it tried to delete the old one, then it would unsuccessfully delete part of an old one that wasn't being used anyway. So
okay. It does look like Jeff was able to fix the problem, which is good, and somebody figured out how to apply the patch and confirm that it fixed. But I don't know what the problem was. It looked like some maybe like recursive directory scan for the core folder or something was failing. But I couldn't really tell from the pull request. It was like a 4-line fix, which looked good, but I didn't know what it was doing.
I thought that the goal was to replace just the core directory and plus some other files outside it, but the files directory would not be touched anyways. So
yeah,
that's where configuration lives. So it should be okay. I don't remember off the top of my head anyone mentioning that they had catastrophic experience.
Okay.
Just mentioning that it doesn't work.
Are unwarranted. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Olaf had some problems, but I thought he sorted them out. So
yeah.
Right. I think we've got another issue that our pre-flight checks are not sufficient right now. Like we unfortunately let people get to the point that they try to do an update or try to install a module and then it fails, when really we should be detecting if it's going to fail before they even try.
Yeah. It's the same thing that we do for the installer. So if there's permissions missing or whatever, we just stop the beginning.
Yep. But yeah, that's not necessarily related. I mean, it is related, but it's not necessarily, the same problem as, turning on the user interface. I guess maybe we're saying that there's general problems that are already there in doing core updates that we need to get first before we expose the user interface. So it's not
only if they're catastrophically bad, because right now nobody can use it, right? So if there's problems, it's not an issue. But if we were to turn on a user interface, people would be like, oh, yay, it's here, click. And then if we knew that would explode, that would be bad. But I feel like if it just doesn't work, it's like bad first impression, but it's not that bad. Just like, it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
Then it gives us the opportunity to fix it because we'll get more testing.
Yeah.
I've tested this issue over its course, not lately, but a few times when it got updated. And the only issues that I was coming across were, for example, I used to use Bitbox for my local development, and the permissions were not set properly. So I also had problems with updating modules automatically from the user interface. So that's why it failed. But when I tried with DDev, it worked, both updating modules and updating core. So I guess it's not that it fails with some. I just didn't bother to fix the Bitbox installation to work with that. It was sort of like what I imagine would be a respective problem with hosting and permissions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, as I said, if we avoid deleting things, like if we keep at least a version or two of core folders there, at least they can manually go there and rename the folders or restore the site. You do have the problem when the database updates are run, but if they fail to install in the first place, I doubt that the database updates would have run. Right?
That's true. Yeah. Yep. I think. Well, yeah. I think that our based on the way that the mechanism of putting the new files in place, like renaming the directory and then putting the new files in place, I think that the only thing that is likely to happen if they get to the point that they've changed anything is that they wouldn't be able to delete the old files. Like it would run into a problem deleting the old files, but it wouldn't actually negatively affect the running of their site.
Yep.
So I doubt that it's likely to be something like it's unlikely that we would leave somebody with a site that didn't work with the way that this is set up. Okay, well, let's what should we do there, Jen? Is that just more testing that we need, or do we need like you said
I would love it if you
some of those
could take a look at Jeff's fix and see if you think that could merge in. We don't have an issue for it. There was just a random PR somewhere. I'll find it and send you a link.
Okay. Do we think maybe what we should do then for is this the status already that 3271 adds the user interface so that it can be turned on by an end user instead of right now there's just no user interface, but it can still be turned on by a developer by the config file, but it's still turned off by default?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a pretty safe. That's a pretty safe set of changes anyway.
Worst comes to worst, it just won't work. It's a feature that we advertise and it just doesn't work, or not for all people. Yeah.
Or if there's something really wrong with it, like we get a report of it actually breaking somebody's site, then we could like in a bug fix release actually disable the ability to turn it on again. Like disable the checkbox and say this is turned off until future releases. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. There's no other updates on in the big meta issue of automatic updates, which is 2018. We do have package signing in issue 1992, still in progress, but no updates going on there. In the agenda, we also have an issue for keeping core libraries up to date. We already covered CKEditor, that got updated to the latest 4.x version. jQuery and jQuery UI, I think, are still on their latest stable releases of, at least for jQuery, the 1.x branch. I don't think that we'll likely see any changes to jQuery for 1.12. And that's all that we have.
Yeah, separate issue. They have to update to 2.x with the fallback that they have, or what you call it, the shim that they have in place.
Mm-hmm.
For the backwards compatibility, and then at some later point, say a year after that, upgrade to 3.x, because I think the 1.x series has stopped receiving any updates.
Right.
So at some point we'll have to update. Anyways, might be browser support issues, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have a separate ticket for that to update to a bigger, major version.
Okay, that's it for things in 1.12. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to bring up in the 1.12 cycle?
Just what Doc Wilmot suggested. That's the only thing that we need to discuss.
The general Q&A.
Yeah, and there's a couple of issues that I would like to have at least a rough decision if they should go in for 1.12 or not, so that I know what to work on. One of them is the trusted hosts feature that D8 has, and they're also working on implementing that for D7. I think that for feature parity, we should also have that feature, but not be as aggressive as Drupal. So do not block the installation or do not throw errors. At worst, only throw warnings at people or informative messages saying, hey, if you need this feature, you can enable it. Just for feature parity, nothing else. But Nate, you're the security expert on that. And there's a whole article in d.org, and it mentions that it is a security issue. So I don't want people to think that we're taking things lightly or something like that, or have an argument to make on that.
Right.
Which issue is this?
Let me find the issue and I'll tell you it's it.
I know the general concept is that in settings.php, you specify which host names, like, example.com or mysite.com. You have to specify which domains are even allowed to point at your Drupal installation, or sorry, backdrop installation. Drupal, the way the Drupal has it.
So the ticket is, that's the one, 2568. So I have a pull request ready for that adds it. So we just need to make small decisions with regards to, do we want the messages to be, it's not implemented to fire up during installation for the installer. It just notice in the status page for now. It adds support for people that want to use it. So I think it's less intrusive. And we just need to decide, because I find it annoying for the people that don't want to use it, that they get an error message and the dot there. So if we degrade that to a warning, I think would be okay. And like if people complain, it would say, yeah, you can still use it. It is supported.
Yeah. I know on our Drupal 8 sites, it has been a stumbling point, like really rather frequently. Every single time we set up a new domain, like it just keeps like, oops, we forgot. And we know that it's there, but the DevOps people are the people setting up the new domain, and they don't realize they have to make a Drupal code change in order to set up a new domain or a new dev site. And so it really is kind of problematic from a DevOps standpoint.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's easily to fix. Like it takes a minute to fix it, but still it's annoying. So that's why
if you know where it is, and if you know what's causing the error.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm on board with what you're saying. Like if we can have it as a security enhancement that's possible for people to use if they would like to use it, but I don't think that we should complain about it. I would even say that it shouldn't even be a warning, that it should just be informative, like on the status report.
Yeah, and the other, if you can comment on that ticket, I can update the pull request until the code freeze. And then one other issue that I would like to bring up selflessly is the 3408, the custom message blocks, which was triggered as an idea from the dashboard. So the idea was that there's a message at the top of the dashboard that suggests how people can use it, but some people might not want to have a permanent message up there. So if this was a block, it would be perfect. And so what this does is it just offers a new styling easily to create custom blocks and style them from the user interface to show up as messages. And in combination with the block scheduler module, this could also address another common use case where people want to throw messages as ribbons or what have you on the sites on a specific date and then have them removed. So I think it's a good feature. But there were two ways to fix it. Either you would add a separate type of blocks. The way that I implemented it was to offer a third styling option or type of message, and have it available for custom blocks and reusable blocks.
Which issue is this one?
3408.
Now, this is dependent upon, dashboard, right? I mean, like, that's where we would use it.
It's not that we could use that there.
Yeah.
But it's a cool feature. And I think Olaf said he already uses that, but he does custom theming. This removes all that need for custom theming. People have to do is add a custom block and then style it as a message from the user interface.
Let's see. Let's go over Doc Wilmot's suggestion here that he wanted in here. That his comment here is that the problem that we have is that there's too many issues that are being pushed into the next immediate milestone, the next immediate version of Backdrop, like 111.4, for example, has got 3 pages of issues that are all tagged 111.4. And he's suggesting that we find a way to manage that better so that we don't just have like people who want their issues to be prioritized just throwing it into the next milestone. And then we end up with a huge number of way more issues than we would probably ever finish in the next milestone, just being put into the next version. And then every time we don't get them in, we have to bump them all to the next one. So his suggestion is that we make a tag for milestone suggestion. I think that, you would add a label to an issue saying, I suggest that we put this into some other version. And then anything that has a milestone suggestion, we would by policy require a second person to come in and agree that it should be pushed into that milestone. I think that that's the suggestion being made here.
Okay.
So basically, it's a 2-person process to pump stuff into to prioritize something into a milestone rather than it being unilateral.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I am to blame because I set milestones, and the reason why I was doing that is because Jen was pushing milestones with each release, but if it got to 3 pushes or so, then Jen, if I remember, you removed the milestone completely, and then we had a lot of cases of issues that were close to being finished that just got forgotten. So a compromise there is to set the milestone to 1.x future, so that we can sort of like have a bucket where we pick issues from. And the other thing is that, yes, I agree to what Doc Wilmot said, with the exception of bug fixes.
So
you cannot choose bug fixes.
Isn't that the case for most of the things that we would put into like the 111.4?
There's some tasks. There's some tasks as well. Because we have UX issues that can go at any time. They don't have to be a minor version. They can go into bug fixes as well.
Right. Also, anything that's tagged with the next bug fix milestone that doesn't have a pull request on it, I spit out immediately. Unless it's super critical and in our meeting list.
It does make sense.
If it's something where we're like, oh, this is a big problem, we can't install Backdrop, like that goes in there and it stays on there until it gets a pull request. But if it's something that's like, this little thing over here is broken, a release comes out, there's no pull request, I remove that bug fix milestone until it still has a label on it, bug. So anytime you have anything that has a bug label and it gets a pull request, you can get back into the next milestone. But just it seems like having...
That's a good policy, actually. So that we are not allowed to set a milestone unless we have a pull request or something like that. Does that make sense?
For bug fixes.
Yeah.
And then for things that are big features like, file entity and core, I don't think we should require a pull request on that before it can get a milestone, because you want to know what you're working towards ahead of time, like so you can set aside time to work on it. So I think that having multiple people weigh in on it there for a minor milestone is good. For a bug fix milestone, it needs a pull request. I think, where are we going to write this down? I think we should document.
Yeah, this is a lot of
like process that is invisible, which I think
that was the question I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds nearly subjective, or possibly entirely subjective. If all we're doing is requiring 2 people's opinion to put it into a milestone, we might not actually solve much of anything, like we might just have 2 people agree.
It's going to be 50% better than it is now, where it only requires 1 person.
I'll get my brother to come and agree.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not actually solving the problem. We're just adding bureaucracy to lower the volume.
Well,
it has worked. It has worked in countries like Greece for corruption.
Adding bureaucracy.
But it's still alive.
So it's still happening. It caused other issues, overhead and stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. So Nate, what do you recommend?
I don't know. I don't have any ideas yet.
I mean, I feel like in a perfect case, in a perfect scenario, what we would do is we would review all of the issues and say, oh yeah, this one's important. And like we would have like a consensus decision where like 5 people would go, this should be in the next release, and we'd put them in. But the reality of the situation is we're never going to have like 5 people together in the same place, and we're never going to have the time to review all of the issues. So I think like letting people bubble up the ones they're passionate about working on is valuable. Like particularly Doc Wilmot be like, I'm really passionate about this super hard issue, and then he'll be, you know, working on file entity. And I would love it if there were fewer things in the queue with file entity so that it got more attention. But I don't know how to facilitate that.
We have the option of pinned issues if we need to decide
But
on
only
3.
3.
Yes,
Right?
it's. I think that, see, when we got to this situation like here, if you look at the list from the agenda, 3 of the top ones already got merged, and then we have like, as we approach, as we tackle one of them, then we bump another one.
So maybe for minor releases, we pick the 3 that we think are our top favorite. These are the 3 that go on the milestone or on the roadmap page on backdropcms.org.
Yep.
And we keep them there until we either finish them or they don't make the release. And if we finish them and we can pin another one, we can pin another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who decides who those 3 are? Is it like people in this meeting every week?
I would hang on. I would suggest that we use pinned issues specifically for if we have made a release and it contains an absolutely major regression that is catastrophic, that a lot of people are going to be looking for. Oh my God, why is my site broken? Then we should pin the issue that is relevant to that.
Yeah,
and that's the only time we should use pinning.
No, I think that we can have 3 pinned issues, and if something critical comes in, we unpin the less important of the 3 that we have already pinned and put that there.
Because I think, well, I guess what we're trying to use pinning for, through your guys' suggestion, is that we're trying to get more people to look at something that is optional, you know, something that is a feature. Whereas what I'm suggesting is that pinning would be used only for things that people are looking for something in particular, like a major issue that they don't want to have to search for. That it would just be like, oh, it's right there at the top.
This is who is a pin for, right? Is it for a core developer, or is it for Joe Schmo whose site just exploded and really needs help?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a cookie or something, or specific to any DOM that I have on my browser, but GitHub remembers, like if you browse to the issues of a repository, it remembers the filters that you have applied, and I usually sort it by the most recently commented one. But I think that there's also a helpful indication of how many comments are in one issue. Like I can see issues with 55 comments. You know that this is important.
Yeah, the really unfortunate thing about GitHub is that the default sort is by the date the issue was created, not the time it was updated, which is really annoying in my opinion. Yeah. So using a pinned issue is about the only way that if an issue was over a week old, it might get pushed off the front page. But it's really important that it be the first issue if it's something that is critical, you know. Of course, hopefully we wouldn't have something that critical open for a week. But
yeah, but if you look, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Nate, but if you look at the 1.11.4 list that we have in the agenda, there's only one issue, and then we're just, if there's no important or critical issues, then we're just not using a feature that GitHub is offering us for promoting things. Because promoted issues will also get the attention of people that want to test things, not only people that want to work on them as in producing code. It's a way for us to also, or it offers a way for us to also communicate that, you know, this is important for us, please help us test it or provide feedback.
Yeah,
I think it's equally important. But we can agree that if a critical issue comes up, then we have to just allow that to take the place of one of the feature requests that we have there until we sort it out.
Well, rewinding a little bit, since, you know, we're talking about different processes and how we're going to use the tools that GitHub provides, like if we're going to adopt any of these changes, we need a place to write it all down, I guess, you know, and that is, I imagine that would probably be in the processes, procedures directory, you know, or in maybe just in the README of the backdrop issues queue itself, you know. That's kind of who
has the permission to actually pin tickets? Do everybody?
Everybody.
Remember pin wars discussion?
Yeah, everybody has permission because it's the same permission that allows labeling.
Yeah.
And we want
Yeah.
everybody to be able to label.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it'll probably be just by policy and convention, how we manage that.
It's the same
We can't do it
problem.
via permission.
Yeah, it's basically the same problem that we had in v.org, where everybody would just file issues like as critical.
Right.
When they
yeah,
were-
exactly.
yeah, it's the
Priority
same
wars.
thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it seems like the place to start, I guess, would probably be putting in procedures. Maybe we would put it in README in the README.md. I'm not sure. But we also haven't even really made any decisions about what policies we want to adopt yet. However, I'm kind of feeling like maybe we should say, let's think about that and come back and convene on it next week.
Yeah. And maybe Doc Wilmot can be on the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might also help if we created an issue to have that as a discussion that we can do, in a threaded manner.
Gregory, can you create an issue for that?
Yeah. Do you want to do it on b.org in the b.org queue?
Let's just do it on the issues queue because it's about the milestones on that queue.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
We want people on that queue to weigh in on it. I agree, it's a weird place for it, but
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Yay. Thank you, Gregory. You're so great. Taking all of these things and making it actually turn into something.
So just looking through the list here for 112, there are a couple of things that I tagged for 112 that are all security related. I bumped those to 113 because they haven't gotten any movement since people originally were like, yeah, good idea. And then it sat there. But what we might consider doing is when we get around to choosing a focus for 113, we might pick security, and that might be a good time to add that feature. Gregory, you recommended about adding the sites that can run
Trusted
your
hosts.
Trusted hostings. Yeah.
custom hosts. And we could put a whole collection of things that are security related into 113 and have it be a security focus release.
That is actually a good compromise now that we're on the subject. If we make sure that we create the next major
Milestone.
minor
Mhm.
milestone, the 13, we can bump everything to that and then cherry pick whatever we need and only blink like 3 issues or whatever on the current one. That might be a better solution. So if we make sure that we also open the 113 milestone, we can push everything there. And when we release the 12, we open the 114 milestone.
Yep.
And we bump everything there. Maybe that's a good immediate solution as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Is everything you want to come soon goes 2 milestones out, and only the things we're working on goes 1 milestone out. And then when we just bump both of them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that idea.
I'm going to go through this issue now and mark some of the things that we know we definitely aren't going to get done out. But it'll probably still have a lot in it for the next week.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
We are way over time, everybody, but thanks for the fantastic conversations.
Yeah, we compensated for not doing the outreach meeting.
Yeah.
well, there's
Okay.
still a whole lot of things that are in review and a lot of things that are RTBC. And I'm just letting people know that I'll be continuing to grind through those. I'll probably get through all of the cross ports for sure. And continue to hopefully clear out our backlog just a little bit because we've got a lot of things that are piled up on the committer side. So I'm working through this today.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's it for the meeting then. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you guys taking time for most of you guys out of your holiday, either to join us online and watch the video or be present here in the meeting. I hope you guys have a great next couple of days and round out 2018 really strong. And we'll catch you guys all next year.
Yeah.
Bye.